Welcome to the Constructing Mindsets podcast. This podcast is about having real, honest conversations and shining a more positive light on the construction industry. Hearing from people across the trades, on-site and in leadership roles. It also connects with the wider work I do, supporting site leaders and managers, improve communication, mindset and problem solving through online modules, in-person workshops and coaching. Thanks for joining us on this one. Let's get into the episode. Construction specifically doesn't exactly have the best reputation when it comes to nutrition, long days, early starts, smoke on the run, energy drinks, and bakery stops. So today I'm super excited to be joined by functional dietitian Rebekah Jones to help break down what actually happens in our bodies with the way many of us eat on site, how that affects our energy, focus, mood, and recovery, and most importantly, what better realistic options can look like for people out there. Thanks for coming on, Rebekah. To start us off, can you explain a little bit about yourself and what a functional dietitian does?
Yes. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be having this conversation. We all eat every single day and it has a huge impact on us. So it's great that we're a bit more aware of it. The question about what is a functional dietitian? So I love this question because I think a lot of people think about if they see a dietitian, it's about the food police and it's about losing weight and that you're going to be under the microscope and I'm going to tell you everything is terrible. But really, especially in a physically and sort of mentally demanding job like construction, whether you're in the head office or you're on site, how I like to think about it, it's really about capacity to perform and stay sharp, both day to day and sort of long-term health as well. So I'm a dietitian. I focus on the food we eat, but when we add the word functional, it's the fact that I practice in a functional way. So I'm not just handing out meal plans or telling someone to eat more vegetables, even though you probably all should. Looking at what's like actually driving their energy levels, recovery, long-term health. So there could be two people doing the exact same job, working the exact same hours in construction, same build, but one person could be completely flat and exhausted by 2 p.m. and the other one feels steady all day. And that difference isn't about just willpower. It can be blood sugar swings, poor sleep, dehydration, inflammation, nutrient gaps, years of stress building up. And so it really builds up and it reflects differently in every single person. So my job as a functional dietitian is to look at that bigger picture and personalize the nutrition to that person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so not just looking at like 3 to 4 meals a day, it's what else goes in behind those meals to drive you as a person and your productivity at work.
100%. And what got you to maybe not being as productive in the first place? So if we think about people like an athlete, what do you actually need to be able to do every day to perform in and out of work? So when you get home as well. And we can use food to sort of fix that, or I suppose top up wherever that function has dropped. That's where the term functional dietitian comes from, so that you can actually hit those goals. So it might be that, Vinny, today you might have not had enough water, and even just being 1 to 2% dehydrated can reduce strength, coordination, reaction time. And so we can really figure out what's working for you, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Well, it's kind of a good segue. You talked about sort of the water intake and sort of that, I guess, translates into sort of how you feel at the end of the day, or even at the start of the day when you wake up. Sort of at a basic level, how does what we eat and drink affect us and how we show up at work or even after work and at home for our families or sport or anything like that?
That's it. We're doing so much more than just at work these days, aren't we? Like we can't just be like,
We're
great,
doing
I
a
performed
podcast.
well. And then, yeah. How do I perform on my podcast at 7:30 p.m. at night after a long day? On construction. It's very important. Otherwise, no one's going to listen to this. So it's the key. So I suppose zoom out at a general level. I think the easiest way to understand it is to think of your body like a vehicle. If you put in the wrong fuel, you skip servicing it, or you run it on empty, you can probably get away with it for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But eventually it's just not going to perform the way you need it to. And eventually something's going to break down. And that can be really small, like you have 3 p.m. slump and you're just a bit cranky, or it can compound over time and you can lead to chronic fatigue, having to actually miss days at work and use all your sick leave, or lead into poor metabolic health and type 2 diabetes, for example. So what we eat literally impacts everything. But it's super exciting because what we eat is really one of the most powerful tools that you can actually control to feel better every day. You can't control like the weather on the site at work. You can't control if it runs late, or your schedule, like us doing this at 7:30 at night New Zealand time. But you can like control what you eat. And when you get that right, everything else can really get us so much easier.
Yeah, like if you're on site and your performance drops, your energy drops, also safety drops, your whole morale drops potentially for other members on site, so they're kind of down in the dumps with you as well. Sort of construction teams don't always have the best access to food and sometimes don't even have that much time to think about food, like most industries at the moment. From what you see, maybe not just in construction, but all other industries that are kind of under big time pressures at the moment, what are some common eating patterns that people are maybe taking shortcuts to, or some of the main things that people are missing out on that are sort of not helping them feel correctly throughout the day?
Some big gaps. Yeah, you and I kind of were messaging about this before. You mentioned it at the introduction, what a sort of typical construction sort of diet might look like. You probably know that better than I do. I have not worked in construction. However, I have worked in sort of the public health setting in the hospital. And I think there's a lot of commonalities there, which is it's a really fast-paced job. You don't have time. Whatever's in the canteen is in the canteen. So I think a lot of people just perhaps haven't prepped. So it's whatever's available. And unfortunately, what's available is highly processed if they do eat. But a lot of people are just skipping meals as well and turning to coffee or any sorts of caffeine to fuel them through. And unfortunately, when you hear that sort of tradie lunch lineup, like you're talking pie, sausage roll, refined carbs, seed oils, sugary energy drinks, it's basically a perfect storm for sort of metabolic chaos is what we call it. So like I said, I'm sure like everyone's different, but there's a lot of that going on.
Okay, well, it's kind of a good segue because, I have made some notes, kind of trying to do this in a fun way, but in a real way at the same time. So I've made some notes here about what sort of the token, I guess, call it tradie lunch lineup is. So I've got 3 examples.
Hit me.
Yeah, so I thought we'd just chat through them. Yeah, some of them I definitely agree with, maybe some parts of them I don't agree with, but we'll just go through them one at a time and just get your opinion and potentially maybe just talk through sort of from your perspective, got that sort of, I guess, your satisfaction, I guess you could call it, from that instant sugar rush or that instant sort of processed food, but sort of what happens after that instant sort of reaction to it. So Radio Hierarchy a couple of years did the 4 pillars of the tradie lunches, and one of their first sections was the bakery pie, the long cream donut with like the cream and the little bit of jam on top, an energy drink, and then finished off with a vape or a cigarette. Correct. So as a dietitian, how are you feeling after hearing that for a person that's in the industry?
Look, first of all, I get it. It's a stressful job and that's what's available. And it's not about, the one-off tradie lunch that's going to do the problem. It's sort of when we have only that for the majority of our meals every day. But basically what's happening, what was it? The
bakery
bun,
pie.
the ice bun?
Yeah, the long cream donut with like the cream in the middle and the little bit of jam on top. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, my mum loves those. So also not in construction, but loves them. So basically what happens with those, delicious. So you get that sort of quick hit of energy, and that's the sugar and the refined carbohydrates hitting your system really, really quickly. So a lot of what you just described, I didn't hear a lot of fiber in there. So the sugar goes into your bloodstream really, really fast. Think of like fiber as a way that would slow down how quickly that energy is released into your system. But because it's not there, protein does the same thing, fat does the same thing. It's spiking and it's going in there. So for that moment, for a short time, you feel super switched on. You are like pumping. And then about sort of 1 to 2 hours later, I've felt this, I've been guilty of this, that sort of like crash hits, right? And that's when people notice they feel flat or foggy. They get impatient or snappy, they lose focus, and then they need either the same thing again or a coffee or an energy drink. But they start making sort of silly mistakes, rushing jobs instead of sort of thinking them through. And a lot of them think it's just like attitude or something that they need to like push through, or if time doesn't permit them to do anything else. But that's your blood sugar after that spike dropping really, really fast. And your brain, which is a really hungry organ, it needs a lot of nutrition, basically running on low fuel. And when your brain is underfueled, your reaction times are slower and your judgment gets worse, which is on a construction site, like really dangerous, right? You talked about affecting safety. So you're more likely to misjudge a lift or get frustrated with other people or slip of the hand. And with a lot of that, even just the caffeine, for example, coming in there, it doesn't actually provide you with energy, even though it feels like it gives you energy. It actually just masks fatigue instead. So your body is still doesn't have the fuel to actually fuel the muscles, because caffeine doesn't go into the muscles to fuel it. You need macronutrients and micronutrients. Plus, the caffeine and the coffee is probably going to make you pee more, so you're going to get more dehydrated. And so if you're not topping that up, like I said, the mild dehydration can affect that sort of focus, balanced decision-making as well. So it's sort of this vicious cycle of sort of spike and crash. And then even like long-term, if you then go home, if you haven't got, for example, enough protein in your diet, when you go to sleep, what we really want to happen is that time is where your body can repair itself, and all the physical maybe work or the cognitive load that you've done. So focus requires a lot of energy too. We want to repair from that and get stronger, essentially like build muscles for the next day. But if it doesn't have the fuel to do that, you'll actually start losing muscle, and it's just this downward spiral over time.
Yeah, super, super interesting. And I think there was some learnings there for me, obviously, but also one thing I maybe just wanted to chat further with you about, you mentioned around the energy drinks. Like I've got 2 kids. So on a Saturday or a Sunday, if I need to get something done, I don't do this often, but maybe I'll have a Red Bull. You talked about the energy drink doesn't actually give you energy, kind of masks fatigue. So are we saying there we're just basically compounding the fatigue that you're going to accumulate over a day, 2 days? You're not actually getting any more energy. You're just putting like a cover over the top of what, like your system has already been depleted. So you're just putting a cover or a mask over the top of it. Is that kind of what we're saying there?
Yeah. And it's a lot more, I suppose this is simplifying things a lot, because there's also a cascade on, cortisol levels. That's a stress hormone. But I do want to be clear that when we talk about energy drinks, there's like 0 sugar ones that just have the caffeine. And so technically, like a sugary caffeine drink, the one with sugar in it, will give you actual energy as well as masking it. So it's just the caffeine.
Yeah.
But if you're just having sugar, and that's basically in a drink that, like we talked about, will go straight into the blood system, again, you're going to get that spike and crash, and you're not getting those other really important nutrients as well. But exactly that.
Okay. One more example I've got here. It's like a slightly different lunch. Like this is an American lunch. So it's like a little bit different. We've been lucky enough for them to break it out into an appetizer, a palate cleanser, a main course, and a dessert. So what we've got for an appetizer here for a construction workers lunch, so we've got a bag of chips, a palate cleanser of a White Monster energy drink. The main course is a roller hot dog with sauce and mustard, and the dessert is a cookie ice cream. So when you hear that, again, sort of probably similar to the first lunch, but any other information that you'd be able to provide around what's happening there in the system to when you're eating that for lunch, and maybe what would be, if you're at maybe the local shop, what might be might be putting on the spot here, but what might be a easier alternative to swap 1 or 2 of those things out for?
Yeah. So again, I don't know what was a roller.
A roller dog. It's like they have them in America. It's like the sausage, the hot dog, and it just rolls on this like conveyor belt to keep it warm, basically.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from what I can gather from what you've just said, if we were to look at it from like a zoom out lens, is that one meal?
Yeah. Yeah, that would just be your lunch. So a bag of chips, probably quite a few calories in a bag of chips. Hot dog and sauce, and again, cookie ice cream, probably a fair few calories in there as well.
Yeah, I think what you just said, being about a fair few calories, is quite an important thing to talk about. Not because I'm wanting to say you need to eat less, but there's this, and I saw this actually in the hospital all the time, is this really interesting phenomenon of people actually eating enough volume and total calories, but still being malnourished. And that's quite like a catch-22 term, right? How can you be overweight and malnourished all at the same time? And it's because you might be eating enough calories total, but what those calories are made out of don't have enough of the key macro and micronutrients that you need. So that meal, to me, calories isn't the issue. You've got enough intake. It's more that where those calories are coming from is sugar that doesn't have a lot of micronutrients: iron, magnesium, zinc, selenium, vitamin C, that help all of the cells in our body work. And it's that sugar spike again. And there might be a bit of protein in that rolly thing. I keep forgetting what it's called.
Roller dog.
The roller dog. Why? I've got fruit roll up in my head for some reason. But like, there might be a bit of protein in that, but it's processed. So you're getting a bit of protein to repair your muscles, but it's actually causing quite a lot of inflammation in your body, which isn't good for health either. And we're missing, it's also about, I like to think about not just what we need to take away from someone's diet, but what we need to add in. So have we got colors from fruits and vegetables and all the micronutrients that come from there? Have we got fiber, which is the fuel that your gut bugs eat? Have we got enough protein? And from that, it looks like it's just skewed, even though the total's enough, into the wrong areas. Does that make sense?
We picture the perfect meal at home with sort of protein, sort of bit of carbohydrate and vegetable taking up half of the plate. But yeah, it's kind of like at that lunchtime, I know specifically for me, when I've been struggling with stress at work, deadlines, I talked about on my last podcast, finishing developments at the end of June or sort of June deliveries, I would always kind of go to, the bakery, McDonald's, KFC. And yeah, like you said, you get the calories in and you eat this meal, but you don't actually feel like, you don't feel full. You're like full, but you're not, like, you're like, oh, I could still eat after this.
Yeah.
And kind of
100%.
until you said that, I was like, yeah, you eat all the food, but like you obviously feel full, but you don't actually feel like it's full at the same time. You feel like you could still consume more.
Absolutely. And it's this crazy thing where, like I said, we've got people who are, like you said, definitely getting enough calories, but the way I work in the functional space is we actually do a lot of blood tests. So even though they're eating enough, we might see that a lot of people have really low iron, which is really important for energy, or they might have really low vitamin C levels, which can, the extreme cases of that of scurvy that we typically found in pirates who are like out at sea for ages. But there's been a couple of cases in the last couple of years of scurvy, even in people who have a normal body weight, just because they're not getting enough fruits and vegetables, which is really, really scary. So when we look at, it might just be that every day you're getting enough food, but just missing out on enough iron or just missing out on enough calcium. And then that accumulates over, if you're working and eating in this way for decades, to this downhill spiral, and you don't notice it until it gets really bad. And that's where we get people in their 60s, 70s, 80s with fractures, for example, in their bones because they weren't getting enough calcium. Or really poor, what we call health span, which is they might be living till 80, but the last 10 years of their life, they're really frail and they're not able to run around with their grandkids and things like that. So it's about making sure that we get all of those things in, which I love this mindset. Like, what can we add into your diet rather than taking away? Eat more of this is really nice, so that we can make sure that you're functioning day to day now, but also once you retire from all this hard work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, so like potentially just hearing, I guess, this sort of construction lunch, like sort of in your mind, sort of what would maybe be the perfect, I know this might be putting you on the spot again, like.
No, that's fine.
the perfect maybe breakfast, or what could you see being maybe not perfect, but what could you be seeing a high performing person on site? What could they be eating throughout the day? They might have, maybe some overnight oats in the morning. That's what I have recently, overnight oats with a bit of yogurt, protein powder, and some frozen blueberries in there.
Well done.
For lunch, sort of at the moment, I've sort of like rice. It's actually got it for the idea from your partner, actually, which is a little bit, I used to give him so much grief on having it.
He still eats it every single day.
But I don't do the tuna though. I don't do the tuna. I can't do the tuna. So I have like the Uncle Ben's sort of rice, the vegetable mix, which is obviously maybe getting me a bit of vegetables, and sort of a canned salmon or a canned, it's like chopped chicken. And then in the afternoon, maybe like a rice cracker with peanut butter, a bit of banana and honey. Sort of, on a scale of like 1 to 10, where is that sitting, and potentially what could I improve on, or what would be maybe the perfect circumstances for myself maybe?
So overall, poster boy. if we put what you just said compared to the one that you just said me from Radio Hierarchy, I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, like I should do a disclaimer. That was probably only, I don't do that. I'd say I've been pretty good, but I have definitely been in the other camp as well. Been in the other camp. But
Totally. But what you said, I just want to like summarize a few things, is that number one, you're not skipping breakfast, because starting work without fuel kind of puts you behind before the day begins. Whereas if you're already at home, even if it's super early, and you know that maybe you haven't prepped lunch and you know the most healthful options aren't going to be available, getting some of those nutrients in at the start of the day can kind of buffer that a little bit. Okay. So your example is fantastic. Eggs on toast, yogurt and fruit, leftovers, anything with carbs and protein is going to be really, really helpful. Those sort of big sugar hits, the lollies, energy drinks, sweet snacks, like we said, give energy really fast, but then crash. So instead, if we think about any lunch, we want to pair it with more complex carbohydrates. So things that aren't going to send the sugar to our bloodstream really quickly, and pair it with protein and then vegetables, like you said. So sandwich with fillings of salad. Let me think. Fruit and yogurt, like you said. Tuna rice with veggies. That's really good. Your vegetable thing with the rice packet. We actually need to be getting quite a lot of different fruits and vegetables every week. So a challenge I often set the people I work with is to try and get 30 different plants per week. So you're on a really great track. I think the other trap that maybe people can run into, and that we run into as a society, because we shop at supermarkets that have the same thing, is if we do eat the exact same thing every day, we're not actually getting a lot of variety. So if you have like carrots and peas with your rice and tuna for lunch every day, fiber isn't just fiber. There's actually lots of different types of fiber. And those lots of different types of fiber come from lots of different types of fruits and vegetables, and all the different colors represent different goodies as well. So the challenge I set is try and get 30 different types of plants every week, just as a bit of a, like, if you've got anyone competitive in construction, it's really going to drive them. I love it. It fuels me. It's like a star chart for adults. But so it might be, this morning I've got blueberries, and then tomorrow I've got more like raspberries and blackberries frozen because it's cheaper and more available. In my lunch, I've got the rice with maybe like peas and corn sort of mixed into it. And tomorrow I might add broccoli, or I might sprinkle some nuts and seeds over it, or I might have a quinoa packet rather than just a rice packet, because those are two different plants right there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I really like thinking of, again, what else can I add in those challenges to put in there. Thanks for that. Hopefully I can get through the next week or so. Maybe I'll let you know if I get to 30. Yeah. Sometimes we do meals and I'm like, I've hit 15 in this.
It's like I need to go eat another plant, because then I'll get 30 for the week. I'll go and have an apple from outside or something. I'll go find something.
Well, you've got a whole forest, right? You go foraging, like one. Super fun if you've got kids as well. So like a lot of people like working will have kids at home, and it might be a cool challenge that you could do with them as well. But I'm sorry, good meal options. Chicken, steak, egg sandwich or wrap, put some veggies in there. Like you said, rice bowl, meat and vegetables. Leftovers from dinner are my favorite. because I don't have to think about it. All I have to do is add a bit more, even if it's just doubling the frozen veggies that I put into the stir fry and I've got leftovers to take to work. That helps so much. And then good snacks would be a yogurt or a protein shake if you can't get enough protein, because meat can also get quite expensive, right? Having a protein powder to supplement is absolutely fine. Fruit and nuts, tuna and rice cracker, like you said, or cottage cheese on rice cracker, something like that would be fantastic. And then sip water throughout the day rather than waiting to become dehydrated. If you feel thirsty, you're probably already dehydrated.
Okay, and that's a perfect segue to kind of what I wanted to ask you next around hydration. We were briefly chatting about water intake throughout the day, Rebekah. There's a lot of social media stuff around electrolytes at the moment. Like, should they be just taken for athletes, or are they for the everyday person as well? Are you able to talk through maybe some of the benefits for electrolytes and maybe how we should be taking them or when we should be taking them?
Totally. Such a good question. I get asked about electrolytes all the time. Such a good question. So let's break this down. So what are electrolytes? The most common ones that I think you're thinking about is, we even had free samples in my office the other day of electrolyte powders that go into drinks. And what these mostly contain are sodium, so salt, potassium, and magnesium. And there is a lot of hype out there. How I like to explain this to patients and clients is just thinking, instead of do I need electrolytes, the question we can ask ourselves is, am I throughout the day losing so much fluid, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, that I cannot effectively or like comfortably replace this through just drinking plain water and my diet and just eating food? Because I think what we forget about electrolytes is that those things, sodium, salt, potassium, and magnesium, are present in our foods as well. So we don't actually need necessarily a powder all the time. Sodium, we're talking about the typical construction worker diet. There is plenty of salt in a lot of things. So anything like packaged and processed has a lot of salt in it as well. So for some people, actually adding more into a drink bottle isn't necessarily the best case and can actually cause some harm. Potassium, for example, I used to work in the hospital as a kidney dietitian, and potassium is something we monitored all the time. And that's really high in your everyday foods like bananas and avocados and potatoes and kiwi fruit. So if you are going to the shop and getting like fish and chips, for example, and just having fries, you're probably getting a lot of potassium as well. So if we can first look at your diet and kind of optimize that and actually get enough electrolytes through your food and just drinking enough liquids, for the everyday person sitting in like an office job, you're pretty good. In saying that though, there are a lot of cases, and like you said, some of people listening to this podcast will be working outside all day in the hot sun, sweating a lot, and therefore losing a lot of fluid, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. So actually to replace that through food, you'd have to eat quite a lot, and it could be quite uncomfortable, right? And we're just trying to get the basics right now. So in those cases, actually having an electrolyte drink and actually sipping it throughout the day, not having all of it at once, because that's just a burst of sodium, can be really, really helpful. But the thing with like some of the drinks that are out there is they're quite expensive. And I remember in university, we had this challenge and we had to like make our own, in the nutrition class, we had to make our own electrolyte drinks. And it was like 100th of the price. And we just got water, some salt, some food coloring. So it was blue, like some big brands out there, and some potassium and a bit of sort of flavoring, and you were good to go. And it was like 100th of the price. So the reason I tell you this is that some people, if they're just sweating a bit but eating a good diet, they could probably just make an at-home one with, in the morning, water bottle, some lemon juice, a pinch of salt, and sip that throughout the day. And they're probably in a really good place as well. But then if we've got these people who are sweating a lot, like you're kind of like soaked throughout the day, you've got to drink lots and lots of water. If your urine is dark, or you're getting cramps, or you're getting fatigued and tired, even though you're hydrating enough just through water, then that might be a sign that actually using an easy to use powder or an electrolyte drink might be really helpful. But just looking for one that's kind of like low sugar if you're getting enough calories through your food.
Okay.
Well.
So just using it as a bit of a top up if it's a smoking hot day in the middle of summer or something like that, and you're outside all day.
That's it. Like, because there might be some days then where like you're working in an office and the next day you're out on site and it's really, really hot and you're playing whatever sport after work. Each day's going to vary as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Great.
And some people are just really sweaty people. They lose a lot compared to women tend to sweat less.
Yeah. I know I sweat quite a lot compared to my sister-in-law who I go running with. She doesn't sweat at all. So very, very good example.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So it's chatted a little bit about electrolytes there. When it comes to sort of, I don't know, don't just want to go through like all of the, I guess, Instagram nutritional things you can add into your diet, but like, come to think of maybe the first one, like a multivitamin. You hear a lot about multivitamins topping up people that might not have the best diet. You could have a multivitamin. Do most people need those multivitamins, or like is the better approach just to eat a clean, well-rounded meal?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Like all of these, because a multivitamin is essentially a supplement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is designed to supplement the diet if you're not getting enough from food. So if we can optimize your food and your nutrition first, it's going to be probably the first place to go because you're going to get so many other benefits from that food other than that sort of like bit of vitamin C without all the fiber and the polyphenols and things that come from a vegetable, if that makes sense. But then the next thing is what I get really frustrated with or really sad for people is if they waste money on supplements that they don't need because of really good marketing. So I'm not saying that some people don't need a multivitamin. If you do, we want to make sure it's really, really, really high quality and doesn't just have a whole bunch of fillers and, suboptimal levels and it's not safe in other ways. But like my philosophy is, why are we taking a multivitamin? It's because we're trying to supplement something, but what are we supplementing? And like you compared to me, it could be very, very different. So what I like to do is actually get just a first test you can do as a blood test. You can go through your GP, I can order it as a practitioner, or people can actually just do this themselves. So anyone listening to this in like Australia, you can go through iScreen and what's the other one? iMedical. In New Zealand, you can go through your GP or something called Awanui Labs, where you can just order them privately and actually check what levels are like high and low. Because rather than you spending your hard-earned money from working on the construction site all day on a supplement that you might not need and maybe is or isn't doing something, I'd rather go, oh my gosh, Vin, you are really low in vitamin D. Maybe you're in the normal range, but suboptimal range. So let's get you a really high quality vitamin D supplement that's actually going to get you into the normal range. It's going to help your sleep. It's going to help your energy. It's going to help your function. And then you might not need it forever and spend the money that you do spend on supplements on targeted stuff like that. So test, supplement, track, retest, and then go from there is probably what I would recommend.
Everyone knows, I guess everyone knows about vitamin C, like vitamin D, like vitamin C, vitamin D. Why is vitamin D so important? And how do we know if we're getting enough of that?
So again, that's perfect. Like that's one thing we can actually just measure on a blood test. If you do it through a GP, just be aware that the range may come back as like normal. That doesn't mean it's optimal. It just means you don't have disease. So it's very like black and white how these normal ranges are done. So for example, I know I had really low iron levels and the range goes from something like 20 to 100 and I was 21. So they're like, you're good. Whereas for a female, I want to get around the, 60 to 80 range to be actually functioning with energy in a normal range. But anyway, back to vitamin D. Vitamin D is one of those things where it's not like you'll have a deficiency and then you'll just feel one specific thing. It's so linked into so many of our sort of biological systems where I think most people know about vitamin D for like immunity or bone health a lot of the time. And I think what we also a lot of people know just from like school is that you get vitamin D from sunshine, right? And so you'd think a construction worker, if they're outside, would be abundant in vitamin D. But where you are in New Zealand, the UV index is really high, so you burn really quickly. Okay. So what are we doing? We're covering up, we're putting sunblock on, and that stops the burn, which is great because we want lower rates of skin cancer. But at the same time, we're depleting our vitamin D levels. Also, as you just age in general, you absorb less vitamin D just because your body, that's just what we've seen in the research. It declines over time how much you can absorb. And if you've got darker skin pigment, that's another thing that can stop vitamin D coming through.
Okay.
So there's actually a lot of things. Or if you work in the office all day and don't go outside, and when you do, you've got long sleeves on or whatever it might be, or you go to work before the sun rises and come home afterwards. So it is definitely one that you wouldn't think, living in New Zealand and Australia, that a lot of people are deficient in, but it's so common. It's so common. And so if we test for it, then it's so easy to supplement for as well. So you can fix it really, really quickly. And it's so important for like sleep, for example. So if you're not sleeping well, it might be that you're vitamin D deficient. And then you supplement that back up. You're sleeping better, and then your energy's better. You're choosing better foods the next day. You have energy to meal prep and all the other things that we've been speaking about. But if I go real nerdy on you for a second, another thing that people don't know about vitamin D is magnesium, that we're talking about in the electrolytes, is actually a precursor for vitamin D. So what that means is that in order for vitamin D to turn into the form that your body can use for certain processes, it actually needs magnesium present in the body at the same time to do that. So this is why we like testing all of them, because there's actually research that shows that people with low vitamin D, if we actually supplement magnesium in some of these people without increasing vitamin D supplementation, vitamin D levels can actually go up, because it's actually the missing magnesium that was stopping the vitamin D. So this is where, again, if we just need to look at what's going on inside your body right now, and then we can put all the puzzle pieces together rather than you just purchasing a supplement.
And I don't know, is that like, might be off topic, but is that similar to, is it like vitamin C helps iron absorption as well? Is that kind of similar line to that as well?
100%. And this is where this is why food is so great, right? Because in one meal, if you have a steak and then you have some greens with it that have vitamin C, and you put a squeeze of lemon, you can get all of it. You're kind of covering your bases quite easily. To be fair, like we were talking about the multivitamin before, there are places in the world where the soil health isn't as good, so it doesn't have as many nutrients, so the plants aren't as nutrient rich, therefore the plants we eat and the animals that we eat that eat the plants aren't as many, like, getting as many nutrients, so we're not, so it can be hard. So as if you are looking for a multivitamin to just kind of keep you up there, then great, just make sure it's really high quality. And if you are taking any other supplements, that there's not a double up, because we also don't want to get into like toxic doses as well. So that's a big thing about B6 in the news a couple of months ago. Okay,
like the main thing there is, if you are thinking about adding in a supplement, is to try and get it specific for you as much as possible. So get a blood test done and then kind of go from there and take direction from there.
Yeah, get a blood test done, look at your diet, see if there's just gaping holes in there first, and then anything that you can't do through diet, or it's just too low, you can always get a supplement.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Totally.
So we were talking a little bit about energy drinks and energy and coffee earlier. What about adding in creatine? Because I know sometimes, I don't know, I just kind of picture creatine for bodybuilders or something like that. Like, could I benefit from creatine? Like, you know what I do, you know how I exercise. Could I start having creatine, or would that help me at all? Or sort of where would that fit in?
This is great, because we were talking about perhaps that like afternoon slump and trying to find energy, and how like caffeine wasn't really helping with that either. So back to food. But creatine is having a spotlight in the media right now. Like, it's talked about everywhere, I feel. But this is one where I'm actually okay with it, because it's actually a really well-studied supplement that is really safe for most, like all ages. I think the research is something from like 5 years old to 85 years old, something like that. And it can have so many benefits on energy. And like you said, it's definitely known for, like, if you want to gain muscle mass, because what it's actually traditionally been used for is it doesn't actually help you gain muscle directly. It improves your ability to exert more output. So like when you're at the gym, you can do a few more reps, and therefore you gain more muscle that way. So if we think about it like that, why is it helping you exert more reps? Is because what creatine does is it helps you produce more energy. through ATP in your mitochondria, which if high school biology comes back to you, those little powerhouses of the cells. So creatine is actually already naturally produced in the body, just not enough. If you've got a high stress load, a high output load, if you're doing physical activity. But the most recent research, or where it's not recognized as much, is that it's not only good for like output in terms of muscle output, it's actually really good for cognitive performance, so brain output, especially in those people if you're in a high stress state, meaning you're really sleep deprived. So if you've got kids and they're keeping you up, or you haven't had a good night's sleep, research actually shows that creatine can increase your cognitive performance the next day, and if you actually take it. And also if you've just got low energy, you've got a really stressful week coming up, you can take it every day, and it can really help with that energy and cognitive performance in the same way it might help you do more outputs at the gym. It's like more reps with your brain or whatever it might be.
Cool. And do you, I don't know, the only thing I sort of know, do you have to like load creatine, or from what I understand about it, you have to load it like 5 or 10 days and then you kind of taper off your dosage? Are you able to talk around sort of how that looks if you're just taking it for a work basis?
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head. So when it comes to sports performance, there are some loading protocols that can be really, really helpful. But when it comes to cognitive performance, as I said, there's now research that it can be so fast acting that it can help you if you've had a poor night's sleep that night and give you a bit of a boost. And it doesn't matter what time of day you take it as well. So you don't have to load for this. A lot of the research is around sort of like 3 to 5 grams per day. Is safe to take for everyone. I'm up to like 10 to 15 grams a day and I take this every day for mental cognitive performance. And because I know I've got dementia and Alzheimer's and cognitive decline in my family too. So I take it as a preventative. But the reason I take that much is because if you are physically active as well, your muscles are really, really hungry. So if you take sort of 3 to 5 grams, most of that will be taken up by the muscles. And then there's none left over for the brain. So if you're taking a higher dose, you've got that spillover, lack of a better word. So you've got it for the brain as well.
Oh, great.
It doesn't cause hair loss. That's the biggest myth I hear. Men are worried that it causes hair loss. If you hear it, it's a myth. It's bad science. And it was just blown up.
Sweet. So it doesn't cause hair loss.
In the media.
Okay, great. No, cool. Omega-3s, I don't think we touched on those. Omega-3s like fish oils, again, sort of another add-in tablet. Should we be tested for it and then add it in after we've sort of sussed out our diet first?
Yeah, so it's basically vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3s, iron. These are kind of the big cornerstones I look for because a lot of people really do struggle with them. You can get it through your diet first, and it's great to try because it's so important for brain health, so that cognitive performance, heart health, and inflammation, which is at the cornerstone of so many conditions, unfortunately. To get it through food, you have to be eating at least sort of 2 to 3 serves of really healthy, fatty, oily fish. So your salmon, your trout, your mackerel. Probably smaller fish are better because they've got less mercury and less plastics in them these days than the bigger fish, unfortunately. So, however, most people, it can get quite expensive to have that every week. 2, tinned fish can lead to other issues like too much mercury. And 3, if you're going into the office every day and taking your lunch, you don't want to necessarily be the guy with the salmon that you put in the microwave and like stink it out, right? So this is one where, again, it's so easy to supplement. You can test for it, but a good idea is like if you're not hitting those targets, I would jump into a supplement. Again, it's all about quality. So there's think of it like olive oil, where if you keep olive oil out in the light or it gets near heat, it oxidizes and it can actually be harmful. So there's a lot of like on your shelf supermarket brands that we don't know what the quality of those are, and they can actually be oxidized. They might not have the right ingredients and they can actually be harmful rather than beneficial. So again, high quality, working with a practitioner to find one that's been tested and has the ingredients that you want in there can be the best way to go. You can test for it. It's not your traditional blood test, because if you just test sort of omega-3 in the blood, it doesn't give you the best indicator. We actually want like an omega-3 index test, which gives you more like a ratio of 3 and 6. But you can't do that as well if you're super interested. But I would start with the food first approach.
Okay, great. And then just kind of summarized this before, but again, just for people who are interested in potentially getting their blood test done, I think in New Zealand you mentioned a site where you could do it online or go to your GP, get your GP done. Yeah, what was that site again? Sorry.
Yeah, so if you go through your GP, I suppose the benefit is if you've already got a GP appointment and they're someone who's quite open to getting this testing done and you know what to ask for, you're in a great position and they can get it for you. In Australia here, if you go through a GP, a lot of it's covered through Medicare as well. But just for some people, GPs are held to quite a high standard of rules and regulations when it comes to testing. So a lot of them, because of this, if you don't have a clinical rationale for getting quite extensive blood tests, they might not be as accommodating, I suppose, to do that. And it makes sense. So what you can do is actually order it yourself. There's one, and I can find another list for you, Vin, but there's one in New Zealand called Awanui Labs, and you can just self-order this. So the benefit of that is you don't have to book a GP appointment. You've got those labs. I'm really big for people like advocating for their own health and knowing their own results, because sometimes you go to a GP, they order results, and then you're like, I don't actually know what the results were or what they mean. They've just said I'm normal, and it might be in a bad range like we spoke about before. So you can actually see them and then work with a functional practitioner who can look at not just normal levels, but optimal levels. For each person I work with, it might just be a general panel that we would order, or we could do more extensive ones for those people who want to look at all those nutrition markers and omega-3s and those sorts of things.
Great.
And you can kind of select different ones on there.
Oh, perfect. Well, yeah, I think, cool, perfect. Thank you for that. Just thinking about moving into sort of behavior and maybe a bit of mindset around sort of food and how we're consuming our food. I talked earlier about my sort of go-to foods when I was stressed or busy at work. Sort of why is it food is often the first thing that people go to when they're busy or stressed? Sort of is there a correlation between like stress and wanting that sort of instant fast food or bad food or sort of that over-carbohydrated food that we talked about earlier?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Because when people are busy or stressed, I suppose I want to get to like biochemistry on you here. So, but what you're saying, like, yeah, stress physiology really does, like, when you're stressed, your body's sort of priorities reshuffle. I'll put it like that. So, number one, acute stress can actually suppress the appetite. So you might notice that some people actually don't eat for long periods and then they have a huge meal later if they're really stressed and they're like on the job. And that's because if you were in actually a really dangerous situation, we don't want to be focusing on that. We want the body to be, completely focused on the task. But what happens if you have a lot of stress is that hours later, the stress hormones, especially like cortisol, can really push hunger and cravings up, particularly to high fat, high sugar sort of comfort foods. And I think this pattern of the stress and then period after that really helps explain why some people sort of skip meals and then overeat later, which also has a bit of an impact on blood sugars, which is why even just adding in breakfast to begin with, if you know you're going to have a big day, can be really, really helpful. I think, like we talked about in these jobs, it's just like mental bandwidth and time pressure as well. So like cognitive capacity for planning. If you're already depleted and you don't have time for shopping and cooking, it's, and you and I both would have experienced this, like what's most rewarding now, what's easiest. And typically, if your body is depleted with something, it's not going to crave fruits and vegetables and everything that we just said. It's going to go for the sort of easy, quick ones. But also many people use food to cope with stress, boredom, loneliness, low mood. And it's all to do with almost the dopamine pathway in our brains as well. So almost to improve our mood.
I think the one thing that caught my attention is that I probably spent years of my life not having lunch. not having breakfast, just waking up, glass of water, coffee, driving to work. And then by the time I look at my phone, it's like 11 o'clock. And I'm like, I haven't actually eaten anything. So like, I think that's probably something that I've tried to really focus on, is to trying to get something in a little bit earlier on in the day. Sometimes for me, though, Rebekah, another personal question or personal advice maybe we could try and share. Sometimes I feel when I do have a breakfast, it actually makes me hungrier. So like, yeah, I would have my overnight oats. I would maybe have a coffee in the morning. I'd get to work. Maybe a couple of hours later, I'd still be so hungry. Sort of, is there a gap there, something there that I'm missing? Is it not enough protein at maybe dinner time or the day before, and I'm kind of sort of not recovered with my sleep coming into the next day?
There's a lot of factors that could potentially go into that. But also, in a couple, say like 3 to 4 hours later, I think it's good that you're hungry again as well. So I wouldn't necessarily, as a blanket statement, say it's bad for everyone. We could definitely look at, and this is where the personalization comes in, right? Like, are you hitting the protein targets? Are you dehydrated, which might make you hungry? Are you hitting those micronutrients, or is your body desperately craving something? Have you not had enough carbohydrates to fill that? So the way you're thinking is absolutely right. And it's super interesting because, the first question you asked was, why does food tend to drop? Time is definitely an obvious one. But what we actually find is that I'm in the sort of 35 to 40% of people who eat more with stress. Like if I'm stressed, my body craves sugar and food. And it's almost like it's a procrastination thing as well. Whereas what we actually find is that other people, like you mentioned, eat less or don't change. So actually everyone responds differently. So it could be stress in the job. Maybe they've got a new job. It's a new place, new people. Maybe they're dehydrated. Maybe they haven't slept. Stress at a sort of total body level could be driven by all sorts of different inflammation, oxidative stress, things that could be going on. So for you, it might be that you're not eating enough. Great, we can fix that and tailor it to you. It might be that actually, cool, you just do need to eat at that point, and actually adding in a snack in your day is going to help you hit your targets, and that's great. And you're doing hard work, so you need to fuel it. Or it might be that for many years, you've been depleting certain things in your body, and you've got lots of inflammation from toxins in the environment, keeping food in plastic containers, stress that's been really suppressing your system. That could all be showing up now as well. So what I would do with anyone like you in a consult setting is really take a full history of what's going on. How have you been eating, not just now, but historically? What's showing up in your blood panel with your nutrient markers? How are you living day to day? We even do things like nutrigenomic testing. So actually testing your DNA, because everyone's different. And what is your DNA showing in terms of what you are predisposed to, which might show why you need more of a certain nutrient than I do, or why people are morning people or evening people, which can really change their cravings. Or if you're more likely to crave sweet foods versus bitter foods. And this all shows up in your genetic testing as well. So again, if we can cover those basics and just make sure that you're meeting the key sort of main meals and snacks, getting enough protein, getting enough fiber, getting enough fluids, carbohydrates, and healthy fats, and then you're still feeling off, that's when we can do a bit of a deeper dive from there.
Okay, cool. No, we've got some quick fire questions here. There's only 5 of them for you. So let's get into some fast 5 quick fire questions. So for yourself, Rebekah, are you a coffee or a tea person?
I'm a coffee person.
Okay.
I'm a coffee person to the point where we have a full coffee station at our house with all the different gadgets, with espresso machine and pour over and cold brew. And we have, it's a whole thing.
What would be your perfect coffee order for yourself?
At the start of the day, I'm a long black drinker. So just straight up coffee. And then if I have a second one, based off my genetics, I know, and just based off how I feel, I know that I won't have more than 1 to 2 coffees a day before lunchtime, or it's going to impact my sleep and it's going to impact my stress and the stress rate. So my second coffee of the day is typically a milkier one, but I drink plant-based milk. So I go for almond milk because compared to oat milk, it has less carbs, so it has less of the sugar spike, and I'll do a single shot rather than a double shot.
Nice. Geez,
To be
quite the coffee
specific.
order there. Yeah, quite the coffee order. Hopefully, don't want to be a local barista there. No, one nutrient habit that makes the biggest difference for people working sort of long physical days.
Eat regularly, like not perfectly, just not leaving it 5 or 6 hours between those refuel sessions, because that's when your body's just going to crave whatever's there, and it's a lot harder to make healthier choices.
Biggest misconception you see people making with food or eating habits?
I think my favorite one, we've actually spoken about it earlier today with the coffee and the energy drink, like you mentioned the Red Bull, is the difference between or confusing stimulants with fuel. So coffee and energy drinks, like we spoke about, hide fatigue. They don't actually fix it or provide your body with the fuel it needs, and that's when burnout and mistakes can creep in. So we feel like we're getting energy, but actually we're just disguising fatigue, whereas we actually need food to provide fuel for our bodies.
Perfect. I think just as a learning, I think that's probably that's probably the biggest learning I'd take just from this, around that fatigue.
Great.
Energy masking. So really appreciate that one. For you, your favorite go-to meal or snack during your workday?
My leftovers. Honestly, if I didn't make more dinner the night before, I find lunch the hardest meal of the day. Dinner's pretty easy. It's set with the family. Breakfast, I love breakfast. So I've got like protein waffles, like overnight oats, smoothies, eggs. That's great. Lunchtime, if I don't have leftovers, I find it really hard to figure out what to eat. So having that steak or that chicken and the veggies and the potatoes and rice and just having it there is just the go-to for me.
Okay, great. Perfect. And favorite go-to, I guess, snack after a long day? Sort of maybe you've got some exercise, or maybe you're going to go see some friends or have some family time after work. Like what's your favorite go-to snack just to tie you over maybe for a later dinner?
Yeah. The reason I laugh is because I say carrots and hummus. And the reason I laugh is because I eat so many carrots. I had this thing where I ate so many carrots that the palms of my hands and the soles of my feet actually turned orange because I was eating so many. And I think it's just like having something crunchy is so fantastic. So I've dialed it down. I only have like 1 carrot a day now.
Okay.
But the carrot with the hummus paired, or like cottage cheese on a rice cracker like you, fantastic.
Great. And anybody listening who wants to kind of connect with you or hear more about the great work that you're doing out there, sort of where can they get in touch with you and find some more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I've got the new website coming soon. So I'll get Vin to link that in the notes below in case it changes. But what I'll also put is my practitioner profile where people can book in if they do want any sort of more of that personalized stuff as well. Otherwise, I'm on social media.
No, perfect. And final question, what's one thing that you wish more people understood about food and fuel?
It doesn't have to be perfect, but thinking more about what you can like add in every day to get you to really optimize your performance is definitely the way to think about it. It's not do we want to take away, but what can we add in? Because this is how we think about athletes. It's not about losing weight and those sorts of things. It's like, how can we optimize this so that you can really live your best life? And that's why food is so cool, because we can really use it so that you can perform your best at work, be the person to go up for the pay rise, still go home and be in a good mood for your family, still play, sports after work, and live a longer and healthier life as well. It's all in our control. So thinking about what can we add in rather than what we can take out.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks so much for, I guess, breaking down this conversation in a way that sort of makes sense and sort of some of those real world examples. You're not just fueling your performance. Your fuel is going to help you perform at work and then also after work and at home. So yeah, really appreciate everything you've said and all the insights that you've given everyone tonight.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me. I hope it was helpful. Go do the 30 plants a week challenge.
30 plants a week. Okay, that sounds great. I'll let you know, come back to you on that one.
Thanks, Ben.
That's it for today's episode of Constructing Mindsets. Remember, every conversation is a chance to shift the culture of construction. Subscriptions and reviews are always appreciated. Be sure to reach out if you're needing to improve performance on site. by upskilling communication, mindset, and problem solving. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. The information we discussed is information only. It is not specific advice. If you take action following something you've heard today, it is important you make sure you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed. Please reach out if you have any questions or if there's any topic you would like to explore. If you know somebody who might benefit from the topics discussed in today's show, remember to get in contact with Rebekah Jones. Details in the show description below. Thanks for listening.